Hello and welcome again to Democratic Capitalism, our talk with author Carey. Today our talk is on gridlock, legal stealing versus tax and spend. Well, Ray, that's a heck of a topic right there. I'm sure our viewers would like to know, what were you thinking when you wrote that hypothesis?
Deep disappointment with both political parties.
Yes, we mentioned that in the last talk.
And the way I would try to defend that cornball title that I created is that the Republicans proclaim free markets and wrap themselves in that blanket. At the same time, they're lobbying privileges for speculators with borrowed money. And the Democrats complain about that, but they do not put their energy into studying reforms of the economic system. They put it into redistributing wealth. I don't think too many people realize that the percentage of the total tax dollars of the United States citizens went from 3% to 35% during the 20th century. So the collectivists have done very well. Now, between the two, if you said, who do you dislike or who are you the most critical of? Well, I don't like what the people who are controlling the economic system with their privileges. I don't like that, but at least they're good at it. The Democrats proclaim that they are the people that work on improving the human condition, and they're not very good at it, because you can't do that just by trying to get redistribution by government. You have to do that by discovering democratic capitalism and using your democratic power to reform the economic system, which has never been done.
And the thesis for your book is just that, isn't it? The ability to generate wealth and economic stability for all leads to peace and prosperity for everyone.
Exactly.
Yes. Now, this whole notion of how the Democrats and the Republicans have been managing the economy, as you say. You mentioned again the whole phrase of the investors, or the what did you call? What phrase did you use for that? The people who collect who benefit from society, but they maybe another word for capitalist that you would use.
Well, in the gridlock, on one hand you had the collectivists, which are the modern day socialists. We mentioned Friedrich Hayek, the Austrian. I make very good use of him. He's another integrator of knowledge that I have enormous respect for.
And what was his specialty? What topics did he write in?
Economics, but it really was a broad social question of how do you organize society so that everybody has the best circumstances to do the best. He was one of a line of Austrian economists. His immediate predecessor was Ludwig von Mises, who wrote a great book, Human Action. So from the title of the book, you could see how wide their spectrum of interest is.
Yes.
But let me try to
evoke the spirit.
Let me use Hayek
to
try to
back here today.
Back up my cornball expression for this gridlock. Hayek wrote, "Socialists increasingly recognize the incurable economic inefficiency of central planning. Collectivists then simply discovered that redistribution through taxation aimed financial benefits was an easier and quicker method of achieving their aims." Now, if we stop there, you'd hear the Republicans cheering, right on, Friedrich, that's what we've been complaining about all along, and now we can see why you were the guru to both Ronald Reagan and Maggie Thatcher. You are our hero. One problem.
I have a feeling there was going to be another problem.
One problem. He also wrote, "Conservatism, though a necessary element in any stable society, is not a social program in its paternalistic, nationalistic, and power-adoring tendencies." Sound familiar?
Yes.
"It is often closer to socialism than true liberalism, and with its traditionalistic, anti-intellectual, and often mystical propensities, it will never, except in short periods of disillusionment, appeal to the young and all those others who believe that some changes are desirable if this world is to become a better place. And that was by Hayek, who the terms get confusing because liberal today tends to be interpreted as the tax and spend Democrat, and the liberal in Hayek's terms goes back to classical liberalism, where the emphasis was on freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of assembly, and all the other freedoms. But Hayek didn't give up at that point. In fact, in one of his books, he has a whole chapter on why I'm not a conservative. I'm not sure how many conservatives who proudly display his book on their bookshelves have got to the end of that book and found that chapter yet. But he says a conservative movement, by its very nature, is bound to be a defender of established privilege and to lean on the power of government for the protection of privilege. The essence of the liberal position, however, is the denial of all privilege. If privilege is understood in its proper and original meaning of the state granting and protecting rights to some that are available on equal terms to others. We really are right back to my friend Carey. That's
yes, you mentioned that in our
almost
prior segment.
verbatim in
Yes,
the comments
good.
that he made on the distribution of wealth. So I say it very loud.
How much
Thank you
influence has this had on your writing in your book?
Well, I think, as I mentioned earlier, I started with a very simple point of view. In every human association, performance improves with trust and cooperation. And every time, some would accuse me of doing selective history, that every time I found somebody that agreed with my opinion, I anointed them as an integrator of knowledge.
It's part of human nature, right?
It's part of human nature.
Part of human
but
nature.
I think it passes very careful examination, and I think he was one of the people. You could tell from his comments that he does not start out with a mind-blinding bias. He's looking at both sides of the equation and trying to come up with right answers. And he's the one that I mentioned earlier that would tell you that anything the government can do that helps the economic system is all right as far as he's concerned. He'd say, but usually financial incentives work better than suffocating administration.